Hello and welcome. I'm Manvi Dhillon and you're with the NDTV network. World Water Day, a day that makes us pause and reflect on the world's most precious resource, water, especially in India, where according to the Niti Aayog, 600 million Indians face high to acute water stress every single day of their lives. And yet India only treats 30% of its wastewater and reuses a fairly negligible amount. But today we want to talk about solutions. We want to talk about the way forward, and we have the perfect panel to do just that. UP Singh, Secretary, Ministry of Water Resources, River Development and Ganga Rejuvenation, Government of India. Rajesh Sharma, Chairman and Managing Director, Iron Exchange India Limited. Dr. Leena Srivastav, Vice Chancellor, Terry School of Advanced Studies. P. Sriram, Executive Vice President and Head of Operations at Pernod Ricard India. Mr. Singh, I'm going to dive straight to some of the principles that will help India move forward. Reduce usage of fresh water, reduce generation of wastewater, recycle water.
India gets adequate rainfall actually, and in my opinion, if we manage our water well, there is no reason why the kind of doomsday which is predicted, in my opinion, will not come true. So far our emphasis has been basically on supply side management, how to more of a dams and those kind of things. We have not given enough importance to demand side management, in the sense that be it the agriculture sector, be it municipal sector, be it industrial sector, we haven't been very efficient as far as using water is concerned. For example, in agriculture we use 80% of water, and water use efficiency is only 38% or so. So what we are trying is that we are trying to increase the water use efficiency, and for that a number of initiatives have been taken.
And we're going to talk about those initiatives in great detail, but I want to just address some of the broader principles right now. Dr. Srivastav, what is the strategy that is needed for rural India versus urban India, and how should they be different in a sense, principle-wise?
The problems in rural areas are more about access to water. So we don't have the infrastructure that is necessary to bring good, clean, potable quality water into the homes of people. Today when we say that 96% of India is served, it is not necessary that that water is going into the homes of people. It's more likely that we have 30 to 40% of rural India which is served. So I think we need to understand the differences, one between getting water into the homes of people, and the second is about providing equitable access. So I think it is very important for us to be able to look at the various layers of the problems that exist in rural areas, and then to be able to find a solution to all of them. The one-size-fits-all solution that we typically look for, especially in rural areas, which might work in urban areas, is not correct. And I think it requires a much greater degree of empowerment and accountability to the local governance institutions that are present in rural areas, and that I think is something that we can review.
Mr. Sriram, wear both your Pernod Ricard hat and that of an expert in the water space, especially from a business perspective. What has Pernod Ricard in particular and India Inc. done in general to move the needle when it comes to handling the scarce resource like water?
See, India Incorporated in the last 5 years have come a long way in efficient and effective water management. To me personally, all these companies have the mandate. We cannot leave it to the big companies and say they need to manage water. All of us, we have to do it. We thought that we will take PRI water stewardship. And when I say water stewardship, we first said that we have to, charity begins at home. And we said we need to reduce our water consumption.
Okay.
So we started with an ambitious plan of 50% water consumption reduction. People didn't believe it initially. But now it's 3 years since I'm happy to inform you that we have been able to reduce in-house the water consumption by 50%. The next step we took is to have water neutrality. We said all the water we consume should be recharged to the places wherever we can. It's not inside the fence, it could be outside the fence.
Okay.
So we started several projects around it and started an environmental policy. Environmental policy encompasses the complete management. It could be water reclamation, it could be preservation of lakes, it could be biodiversity, it could be even energy management, efficient energy management, because you say the carbon footprint, and also leads to a good waste management. When you encompass all as a part of the society, it gives to a complete 360-degree round of how we conserve water.
Mr. Sharma, I did want to address a concept first with you, and I have to say I'm not that familiar with it. I know reduce, I know reuse, I know recycle. I'm not sure whether viewers and people like myself understand what recharge and rejuvenate also mean.
Recharge is only after you are able to treat the water safely for reuse. So there are places world over where the wastewater is being treated and it is being made safe and then being recharged in the ground to raise the aquifer levels. Second is you reuse for various applications.
Sure.
Psychologically, we will not use it for drinking, but in a place like Singapore, they're doing that as well, because the wastewater recycled is being mixed with fresh water and being supplied as new water. 70% of our water we actually waste in flushing the toilets and or industrial waste which comes out, which can be really treated and reused.
Okay.
So we can conserve the fresh water. Although we have enough rain, as I said earlier, but the problem is it's very intermittent and very heavy over 15 days. We are not able to capture, it just flows out to the sea.
What about harnessing the sea?
Sea is huge, and that's a big resource of water. We started working on this technology way back in early 80s, desalination. And the first desalination plant was set up in '91 in Gujarat for electricity board. And since then, we have done about 14, 15 plants in India. Also, it's now being, in Chennai, the municipal water is being supplied through desalination. So, over the years, the technology has evolved. It's becoming more competitive in terms of OPEX as well as CAPEX. And as you know that most of the Middle East, the water supply is from sea, and the desalination is very well accepted. And as we are moving ahead, the technology is getting better and better, and specifically the membrane technology, and that's an area where we are focused. And we have now set up a state-of-art plant at Goa to manufacture these membranes in India, so that we are able to offer
a competitive
price and also back it up with the after sales.
Mr. Singh, there's a statistic that shows that 70% of states treat less than half their wastewater. I can understand it's a capital allocation issue. I can understand it's expensive and time consuming to build that kind of infrastructure, but how can the central government incentivize states to step up to the task?
It's true that in India we don't treat as much wastewater as we should treat, but then there are a number of schemes right now. Of course, first of all, it's basically a responsibility of urban local bodies to treat the wastewater actually, and the state governments. But the central government through different programs. For example, under Namami Gange program, the entire entire Ganga basin, all sewage treatment plants are basically coming with the Government of India support. 100% funding, not only for the CAPEX, but for the OPEX for 15 years also, operation and maintenance. Similarly, in other areas also, there are programs from Ministry of Urban Affairs like Amrut, which is basically both for the drinking water as well as for the sewage treatment. But basically urban local bodies and state governments also has to play a very important role. They need to collect. Unfortunate part is that most of the urban local bodies are not technically as well as financially capable right now to take care of the sewage treatment plants establishment and operation and maintenance. So in Government of India, we do have quite a few schemes under which we are incentivizing the states.
On that note, I'm going to take a quick break, and when we return, I'm going to pose to our panel more examples of solutions that they have seen. Solutions that inspire them that you can do this at scale in a cost-effective manner, keeping in mind the principles of water is scarce, demand can be never-ending, we have to be mindful of how we manage it. Back in a moment. Welcome back. You're with the NDTV network on World Water Day. We're all reflecting on solutions that can help India move forward on what some predict, including the Niti Aayog, could be a challenging few decades ahead. Dr. Srivastav, step in on the fact that, we have this inadequate wastewater treatment approach, pan-India. And then there are things like, it's baffling to me that we can have leakage of a resource like water to the tune of 40% in urban areas and live with it.
The problem is that these are issues that have been with us for a very long time, and we have been totally aware of it. So if you recall, there was an experiment that was to take place in Delhi of 24/7 water supply, which I think, if I remember right, the World Bank had floated, and there was a huge pushback against it because it was a small experiment. The reason why something like 24/7 is very important is it keeps your water pipelines full and prevents them from bursting, which is what normally happens. That's one part of the problem. The other part of the problem, of course, is that our networks are such that most water pipelines run parallel to sewage pipelines as well. So there is a contamination of water risk also, which is very, very high. I think we need to be able to address all of this. Yes, we can use high-tech, both to establish where the leakages are taking place, as well as to have a much better idea of where our groundwater resources are located, because as you're aware, I think almost 80–85% of our water consumption is on account of groundwater resources. Coming back to Mr. Singh's point, water in its totality may not be a problem, but if you're not going to know our water resources, if you're not going to know the vulnerabilities that we have around these water resources, and if you're not going to price water resources, and if you're not going to ensure that the system as a whole works, then I think finding a solution by looking at one part of the problem, as we have been doing for Ganga, and I presume we are still continuing to do, would be a major challenge.
Mr. Sharma, have you worked with any municipal bodies that give you signs of hope that they're thinking differently, functioning differently?
Well, we all know that there are water shortages, fresh water availability. So the local bodies are under stress to supply first safe drinking water to the people. And second comes the industry. So wherever there is a stress, the other alternative is to look at the waste and see how it can be reused for the industry. And there we have been involved in Gujarat. We have done a PPP project in Anjan with Welspun, where we're taking the city sewage. It's a 30 MLD plant we set up, fully automated, and now the whole treated water, majority is being used by Welspun themselves, and the balance they sell it. So this is one viable solution of using the sewage beneficially, and also addressing the freshwater shortage.
Which Mr. Singh brings me to public-private partnership, which in a sense, perhaps the private sector can plug the understanding, technology, capital gaps that urban local bodies have to cope with. Is that literally the only way forward?
That's one of the way forward. For example, you were asking for some of the municipal bodies. Take the example of Nagpur, where today 24/7 water supply is being assured through public PPP mode. And generally people think that people will not pay for water. Even in slums people are paying for water. Yeah. So now our realization is that it's not so much of a problem of capacity to pay, but it's a capacity to demand in most of the urban local bodies. And secondly, in Nagpur itself, treated water, a Nagpur Municipal Corporation sells to a company who further treats it and supplies today to electricity company Mahagenco and NTPC. And even municipality is earning some money, and the company is also earning some money, and then treated water is being used. So there are right now quite a few other examples also where this public-private partnership is working fairly well.
Dr. Leena Srivastav, examples of where challenges on the infrastructure, challenges on capital, challenges in policy and regulatory framework have in a sense been overcome to address the needs of a community.
One of the very exciting things that I saw being done recently was actually in the state of Telangana, if I look nationally, where I think the state government has made a huge effort to geotag all the water bodies across the state and have information on the extent of water which is being held in these water bodies, be they lakes, be they tanks, be they wells, and so on. So establishing that infrastructure for knowledge generation, I think, is critically important. We do need to take it the next step to be able to use that data that can be generated from here for predicting vulnerabilities going forward in El Nino seasons and so on and so forth. I'm not sure where exactly the government has got with that, but at least the infrastructure for that kind of measurement and monitoring is in place.
Mr. Sriram, learnings from other corporates that can inspire others to follow suit in the area of water?
I think the most important aspect is, as Mr. Singh said, we have water everywhere. There is a saying, water, water everywhere, there's no water to drink. That's basically because this water is not recycled, it is not treated. I can give you a very, very small example. For example, you take Delhi NCR. There are a number of wedding halls, there are a number of hotels, and there are a number of farmhouses which host a lot of weddings and functions. The amount of water that is being wasted, people just leave half in a bottle, please leave half in a glass and then go away. Can we get all this water to be treated and recharged? All they need to do is a mandatory recharge pit. If you have that, you treat all the water and put them back and then start measuring it. And can we incentivize people? For example, I live in a condominium. We have a rainwater harvesting project. But what accountability do we have? As a corporate, what accountability do we have? Do we measure the amount of water that is going in? Today we have measuring instruments. So all our factories, for example, we measure the water that is being treated, we measure the water that is going in. That gives an amplified example of how corporates can play a big role. And can government incentivize this? If they are going to incentivize this, people who are really contributing, that encourages more and more people to come.
So you're saying today that corporates are actually increasingly tracking their water consumption levels?
Exactly.
Because it's become a necessity for them?
Exactly.
Mr. Sharma, if, I make this simplistic statement, scalable, innovative, cost-effective solutions for India in the field of water management, what examples would you share?
In terms of water, we have been doing everything possible to give a total water management solution to industry, community, homes. As I said earlier, water can be reused, recycled, and we have done it for all types of industry, and now it's leading to zero discharge. We felt that after water, solid waste is also becoming very important thing, and when we treat especially sewage, we create sludge. So we have now set up a pilot plant in Hyderabad at Akshapatra, where we are trying to bring the sludge from the sewage plant and the kitchen waste and putting it together to generate energy. So this will be about 1 ton of sludge coming in and 1 ton of and the 2 to 3 tons of kitchen waste coming in, and it will be generating energy, and it will also produce very good fertilizer, organic fertilizer. Now this pilot can be used for decentralized plants for handling both solid waste from the kitchens as well as the sludge coming out from sewage system. It can also be used for at city level by just scaling up the model.
I would like to thank each one of you for some of the insights that you've shared today, some of the sober realities today, the sober projections coming from the Niti Aayog for the future in urban and in rural India. And like I said, on a day like World Water Day, it is timely to reflect and to share, scalable solutions for the future. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to our viewers for sharing this conversation on World Water Day.